For the first time in my life, I felt that my splitness was gone. The music kind of made that thing that could become split, it unified. But then it went into, through the music, I felt healed for the first time, and I felt like a normal person.
We live in a time that has largely forgotten that presence itself is medicine. That healing happens in stories, in silence, in the earth, the water and the wind. My name is Anneke Sips, community psychiatric nurse, trauma therapist and author of Wisdom of Psychosis. It's an invitation to think differently about what heals, to look for medicine in unexpected places, to remember. Today, my guest is Simon. Simon, we met, today actually physically for the first time in person. But Simon connected with me through LinkedIn after seeing a post that I wrote about my book, Wisdom of Psychosis. And after that, we had some email contact and a few phone calls. And I feel there are so many beautiful layers to explore, and there's beautiful overlap in some of our thinking processes. And I'm very happy and very grateful that Simon is here with me in the podcast. Simon went through a psychotic episode, and when he saw Wisdom of Psychosis, he realized that this was actually part of his experience as well. So this is what we will talk about today. Yeah, Simon, welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
We both are actually Dutch, but we decided to speak in English so that our English listeners and audience can understand this as well. So let's just start with a short introduction about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about Simon when he grew up?
My name is Simon. My mom's German, my father's Dutch. They're both medical doctors. So I grew up in a very nice family with 4 brothers, and it was always, our house was like the house where all the children wanted to play because there was not much rules. And my aunt took care of us a lot of the afternoons, and she was a Buddhist person. There was a lot of freedom, freedom to be yourself, freedom to play and explore. And so I grew up in a very nice family. And when I was 13 or 14, in hindsight, I had my first dissociations, which came with a wisdom also, because I was visiting the gymnasium in Nijmegen, a very traditional school, very, very different than my Montessori school that I visited before. Yeah, it was a quite dissociative experience in general, this kind of traditional, very impersonal school where it wasn't about relationships, but it was about performing well.
At the gymnasium, you mean?
Yes. And
was it a big school?
It was a big school, Stedelijk Gymnasium Nijmegen. And it was it had a name and so on, and you were happy that you were accepted. But then when I was in, I was not happy at all, because in the Montessori we had the freedom of making our own rhythm. We had a connection with our teachers, and that was suddenly gone, and you were
into the deep.
And you were going from one classroom to the other. You were constantly disoriented. You couldn't stay in one room. Now, being a teacher myself, I have a lot of opinions about what went wrong there. And the interesting thing was, in puberty, as Rudolf Steiner says, you open for the first time in your life, basically, your inner landscape to other children. And this is a very scary moment, because you can discover who you are without your parents for the first time, and you open up. And for me, it was kind of harsh, because I had dissociation in that period. So I just made friends for the first time in my life. Like, of course, I have my friends from the
elementary
school, but that's different, because yeah, it kind of goes naturally. You don't choose.
Mm-hmm.
And you just grow into it. And that was a very nice experience. And then suddenly when I made this fragile phase of puberty, when I hit that, I started dissociating. So basically I didn't know who I was anymore. So my new friends, they thought I was making fun of them.
And this was around 14.
13, 14.
13, 14.
So they really got really angry and started mobbing me. And I couldn't do a thing about it, because part of me was, for me, like, dissociating is a term that is too general. What I felt like my soul was going somewhere else, and I needed to find where it wanted to go. And because of the mobbing, because of the not successful integration with the new friends group, there was a wisdom behind it. And then my mom sent me to her parents in Berlin. And this was the very nice thing to do, because then I came across one of my first real teachers, which was my grandfather. So
What age?
14?
14. So you went by yourself?
Yes. So I was 14 or end of 13, and I went by myself to Berlin to live with my aunt and uncle. And every Sunday I was invited to my grandparents, which were very special people because they were very successful scientists in physics and chemistry. And they had known a lot of Nobel Prize winners. And so they had this. When I was there as a kid, you could feel like there was a lot of wisdom. It was like a very special place where everything was breathing a certain depth, a certain connection with life. And I felt very at home there. There's a story of my dad, even when I was really small, like 1 or 2 years old, that they wanted to pick me up because I had stayed with my grandparents for 2 weeks. And I didn't want to leave because I felt so
at home.
And that also, when I was there, my grandfather gave me like the first really good life lessons that I still stick to.
Can you maybe share some of these life lessons?
Yes, of course, yes. So I think they were tailored for me because he saw what I was becoming. So I think everybody should find their tailor-made life lessons,
or grandparents, or their
or anyhow. It doesn't really, but I can share them in what was really important for me. It was like a seed. He planted like a seed in my consciousness, and a few things were very important. And I can't really. It came with a lot of feeling, so I can describe them, but I don't think I can give them one-to-one. So basically, he said, like, for me personally, he said, one day you will need a doctor father, which is in German tradition, the one that does a promotion with you, which at the moment I found my doctor father a few months ago, so it was kind of prophetic. Because he kind of realized, I guess, that I was kind of a free-spirited kid and had certain depth to my being or something, and then that I wouldn't succeed only in the normal working place. Which is true. I did it for 1 year. I was a teacher, and it absolutely suffocated the shit out of me, and I decided wanted to do a promotion and become a doctor because I realized there my ideas are valued. I can realize my ideas, because in the school where I was working, you're just very low in the hierarchy and they just trample. And yeah, you first need to suffer 10 or 15 years, make all the experience, and then you can put in your ideas. So that was one thing he said. And another thing he said was very important, that I find guidance from teachers. And this is a concept which seems very normal. Like anybody can imagine, okay, I need guidance from teachers. But the way he said it and the way he had lived it himself also came with that message. And yeah, it stuck with me. I've had teachers in violin making, singing, Buddhism, yoga, and so on. The list keeps on going. And I think it's just the wisdom or the consciousness that there's people that are very good at something and they can guide you. If you show the right attitude and you share love for something, that was really an invaluable lesson. Like, it was so valuable that I can't describe it in...
Yeah, no, but I think it's something else than like everybody has a teacher go to school, but I feel like what you're describing is more one-on-one connection. There is something else. It's more like mentoring and guiding.
Yes, and I was 13, 14. I played football every day, and he also asked questions. He asked me like, Simon, when you're playing football and everything's working out, you're playing a good defense, you're making goals, how would you describe that feeling when that's happening? And I was like, I don't know, grandfather, I'm just playing. But he was in a very different part of his biography, and he was of course talking about flow, because he was interested in philosophy. He had like a huge library, and he was interested in physics, of course. And yeah, flow is a state that they talk about a lot. And he was asking, he was kind of triggering with his questions. He was triggering something. And yeah, he also told me about general thing like how to make decisions, which is also quite important. He said like to make big decisions like a job or a partner, you really have to feel your connection with the earth. I have to translate it from German, so but he gave me a sense of that feeling also, how it feels when you make good decisions. You really have to make them out of a certain state of being. That's what he basically told me. Beautiful.
More grounded state of being.
Yeah. A certain, grounded is a description, but it's more like an aligned state of being. Because grounded feels like you're pushed into the earth. No, you're aligned with something bigger, maybe. He didn't really describe it with words, he just let me feel it. And I forgot about it, but when after my first year of university, after I started my bachelor's in political science, it came back. So out of the seed came a flower or a tree, because he talked about university in a way which was very inspiring, with his promoter, and his professor was a Nobel Prize winner. And there was a small class just after the Second World War in Berlin, and it was very inspiring. And I went to university, and there was 300 students. Everybody had a number, like in jail. And there was no personal connection at all.
No, and I think this is so important for us humans, and this is also what you described as what your grandfather was doing, and you were this kind of kid who were just not doing so well without this connection and this certain state of being. You were not doing so well in a big school that more feels like a prison or something like this.
I lost. It's hard to remain connected, but the thing is, what is interesting, that a part of me, I'm convinced that a part of me knew I have to go to my grandfather. So it started dissociating in Nijmegen until the point that my mother didn't know what to do anymore and sent me to her parents. So there's also, in hindsight, I think there's a lot of wisdom in how my system started deregulating myself. So my parents could see, okay, we have to do something.
This is not working.
Simon loves his grandparents. Let's send him to Berlin. And I had a great 6 months there. It was really like, there was not, in Nijmegen, you had this provincial, just crude, stupid mentality of the provincial Dutch people, children, in puberty, which are, of course... And then you came to Berlin, which was the city of the world, and the people had a lot of more tolerance, education, and that was, of course, it was like a stream of fresh water. Because in the Dutch countryside,
it's different.
It's different.
It's different.
It's not the world. It's very mentality can be very provincial, and therefore children are being mobbed, and you have to fit. Either you're a hockey person or you're an alternative person, and you have to fit in.
In these labels.
In these labels. And I remember that, and I refused. I was like, this is not me. And of course, then if you're not part of some kind of subculture group, you get mobbed. I think that's in many countries, it's like that.
So then you, as a teenager, you ended up in Berlin. You were there for 6 months. How did it continue? Because then you, at some point, you ended up in Vienna. Let's go through this a little bit. And also there is music played an important role. You're building from wood. You're building violins. You're a singer now. So how did this start? Like in your adolescence?
So I just after Berlin, our family went to Groningen in the north of the Netherlands because my father could become a professor there in his gynecology. And then at 18 I moved out, I first did a year in between. I became a ski instructor, learned some Spanish. And then I started studying in Amsterdam, political science. So I did the first year and it was a very empty feeling. Nothing like what my grandfather had promised, how university would be. And then I started hitchhiking. So this is a very important moment in my biography because that's, as you say, you give yourself over to the world.
Like you surrender.
You surrender completely.
When you're hitchhiking.
You surrender the hell out of you.
How old were you?
I was 19.
Okay.
And I remember standing in the Luxembourg somewhere in the gas station, 4 o'clock in the morning, freezing to death. It was just after Holland had lost the World Cup final. And I remember being so sick of the Dutch people that they started fighting at Museum Square after they lost the final. And I thought, these people are so uncultured. My God. We lost football and now we start fighting. Can it be more primitive? And then out of this kind of sadness, because of course you project also your own sadness on the others, something I know now. And it was also a moment of, hoe zeg je dat? It was like I was empty and I was a little bit...
So you were still in university?
Yeah, I had done my first year with a lot of alcohol, drinking. I was part of the rowing society. But then I was empty and I was kind of lost. And I always, as a person, in me grows a lot of courage when I'm lost. It always... The moment I'm really lost, a certain courage comes from my spirit and comes in the system, and I do stuff that I later think, wow, that was kind of brave. So desperation is, for me, when desperation comes, the answer is to be brave.
Yeah, it breaks open something.
Desperate, brave.
Yeah.
So that will come a few times in my story. Anyway, that was one of the first times I was really desperately brave. So I was standing at the gas station and I was like, oh, I'm going to be raped or something bad is going to happen. 4 o'clock in the morning, strange people. And then this guy comes and he's like, where are you going? 4 o'clock in the morning. Who's going to ask me at 4 o'clock in the morning? That must be weird. But this guy says, okay, I wanted to go to Chamonix. And I didn't know if hitchhiking would actually work. But yeah, that's part of the surrender. So you have to go through all your fears first before it can actually happen. And this guy named Luuk, I will never forget it, he just took me in his car. He didn't talk to me, didn't ask me anything. I just fall asleep. Next morning, I'm in Chamonix.
Oh, wow.
And I realized, wow, this surrendering business, it's good.
Yeah.
Because the universe provides.
So that was a good experience.
Yeah, it was like an angel person. He didn't demand anything of me. Just I slept like a baby and he drove to Chamonix and then I met a friend there. And that was like the best summer of my life. Because I hitchhiked like through 10 countries for 8 weeks or 9 weeks. I met the first love of my life. I met also on that trip in France. And all these beautiful people took me. Like the average people were scared, but the beautiful people, they were like, come in.
Yeah.
And they also had experience with hitchhiking, so they had like a debt to the universe sometimes. Or they were just random people who took somebody for the first time. And it was so rewarding to be in this kind of trusting position and just trusting the universe, whatever will come, will come. And yeah, I learned a lot. And I came back from that summer, started university again, and and I felt like a new person, and the emptiness was gone. And then I started finding. So I met this guy in the philosophy department, and he had been to Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village. And sometimes in Buddhism they call this a Dharma door. You meet someone and you feel your whole spirit, soul goes like, it reacts extremely strong. And this guy, Bas, I met him and something like under the carpet came from him too. Like he was some kind of door. And I was like, oh, he's a door. Interesting. And then he told me, I'm going to this monastery. I'm like, me too.
I'm coming with you.
No, I say, I come to visit you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that... And then I actually hitchhiked in the winter time, and everyone came in the right moment. Like I didn't have to wait for minutes. And even somebody in a train talked to me and said, okay, let's get out of the train, I'll drive you there.
Yeah.
So it was like...
So beautiful.
So it was like universe was providing and providing and providing.
So you went to Plum Village.
Yes.
And you met this guy and you saw him there.
The Zen master, you mean?
The Zen master, I don't know, did you meet the Zen master?
Yes.
Yeah. And
I met people, there was the time I went there, it was called, there was a special week and it was the ceremony of the lamp. So basically people were honored for their lifetime of service to people. So it was a very inspiring week. So the Zen master, he would give these lamps and he would ordain the people to become a Dharma teacher, which is the highest grade in their system. And I was just listening and I was saying, like, these people, they have put their life in service of something greater and they're honored after a lifetime of work. So you can imagine for a young person, that hits you. You're like, I want to become like them. I want to help the world somehow and provide service and be a bodhisattva. Someone that... Bodhisattva is a name for someone who... Yeah, he will only sit still after all the suffering in the world has ceased. So he helps the world.
So there was a big, feeling of like maybe a pull from within you that was guiding you on your path.
Yes.
And you so going through these experiences of life, things that you've learned, how did you end up in what is called a psychotic episode?
So I had this dissociation as 13, 14. And actually, so in my family, it was kind of known that there's something I would lose control. I had like, you can say, at the beginning of a split personality, I think. But it was still young. It was still healable. I could still heal it. But sometimes if somebody would really mob me, something would come in my consciousness and protect me without me asking it. Like I was on the driver's seat. Or I was in the back of the car and something came and... Took over. Which is kind of scary. And at some point, when I was like, I think we did a sailing trip with my family when I was 16 or 17. And yeah, I call this side my doppelganger or my dark side. Everybody has it. Mine was just a little bit bigger and already had developed his own personality almost. And during this sailing trip, you can imagine a sailing boat is a camping van. You cannot go off. So if you have a conflict with someone, it goes to the
roof.
It goes to the last crane. So I used to have a fight with my dad a lot, and we fought and this.
So you were your family on a sailing trip?
Yes, we would always go sailing because I come from a family of sailors. My father loves sailing. Anyway, he was also old school doctor, kind of authoritarian. And he was, of course, the captain of the ship, which is a very authoritarian place.
Yeah, role.
And especially that part of me was not respecting that. So we would just fight. And that part of me was so strong that we sailed from Portugal to the Netherlands, and in London my father got a heart attack. And well, of course it was also because he worked so much and so, but also I knew I had something to do with it, because this part of me was relentlessly looking for a fight with him all the time. And then I realized also, and he also gave me some very hard feedback at that moment. And I realized I have to work on myself, otherwise I will become a not so good person. And during my hitchhiking, I met two really completed split persons who didn't manage to heal that part of them, and both were crooks. One of them doped horses in Norway and was like a Darth Vader. Like he had like very dark charisma. Every woman he talked to, he could kind of put her under a spell and do what he wanted with her. And the other guy was in France, and he had 2 of the same cars, like 8 of the same pair of shoes. Because these people, they look for a hold that they can have the chaos that they have inside, the splitness. They try to have it in the outside, that everything is the same. And the way they treated me like family. So I realized I have the same seed of schizophrenicness in me.
Who was, like, did they like call themselves schizophrenic, or
No.
is this something that you like
I
that you
saw
kind
it.
of realized?
I saw how they switched. I saw they had a completely mature second personality.
Can we look at this without the label of schizophrenia? So can you describe what you saw?
I just saw somebody who had a nice side, and then it would change, and they didn't have control of it.
And you saw these qualities in those people, and you recognized something within yourself.
Of course, I had to experience it myself. Mine was not mature yet, but I could see that if I do nothing, I become like them.
This is and how old were you now? Just to
18, 19.
18. So you met these people, you saw this energy, and you
then,
realized that.
And I could see what I did with my father.
Yeah.
So people that I love, I could hurt like really deeply.
Oh yeah.
So I realized I have a big job to do, not to become a mafiosi. Yes, and then at 20, so it was also my first year of, or 19, I went to London for a beneficial concert for the Gaza. Gaza already was a big thing back then. And then I heard music for the first time, classical music. It was for a good cause also, for the Gaza. And it was like, for the first time in my life, I felt that my splitness was gone. So the music kind of made that thing that could become split, it unified.
That the potential was there, and it was kind of starting to go already in that direction.
But then it went into, through the music, I felt healed for the first time, and I felt like a normal person. Like one.
Because you're speaking about splits side, so you mean it brought you into more like wholeness or oneness experience.
And I think just slowly go back to the word schizo is the Greek word for split. So I don't know how the psychiatry nowadays uses those terms, but I had my biggest fear was to become split, to lose control over myself, and there was real good reasons to be afraid. So I sat there and I saw also that how the people worked with the classical music, especially conductors, and I saw how they were not free.
The conductors, you mean, or the people who were making music?
The conductors of the orchestra.
Yeah.
I saw them and I realized, okay, wow, this music heals me completely. That was one insight, and it was like a catharsis moment. So skies opened, it was like lightning, went through me. And I realized this is a way to become healed or become one. And I realized at the same time, these conductors, they are stuck. They are not serving the music. They're not serving themselves. They're some kind of politicians. They're not free. There's a few examples of conductors who managed to be quite free, but most of them are, they're suffering. And also the musicians as well. So, and then I realized immediately I have to go to the monastery first. Before I become a musician, I first need to learn about my mind, how it doesn't become such a big ego. So that was the first. I said that I remember we had this thing for the Gaza stripe. The music, it put me in a complete catharsis. So if you experience that, it's like a life-altering moment. There's the before and then after, because you basically the universe gives you your task. That's how I understand it nowadays. And the first, and then I realized first, okay, I have something to do. I have to go to the monastery, train my mind, and become ready for my real task. Because if I just go to a music school, I will get such an ego, and that will not serve the music.
So these kind of insights, they came in that moment. Like
really fast.
You went deep, and there was a return. Like oftentimes when you go deep into the dark, or you experience or you receive these kind of insights.
It was very emotional. I was crying the whole time. It was very beautiful. Nowadays, I would say that because of my anthroposophic training, I realized that in our soul we all have like a certain plan, I think, or a certain image, and it was part of the image of my soul. So
like a blueprint or something.
Yeah, it's more like, I think it's like a chain. A chain of images that are very deeply ingrained in the soul. Like, how do you call it in English? I know it in German. Like very archaic images that you, before you go into the human body, your soul carries them. And you find, the moment you find them in your life, it can come through a loved one that you meet, a job that you want to do, something that you love within the world, that you can become one with. It's a very defining moment. You just weep your eyes out, and it's like you find a big piece of your own puzzle that you laid before you came into this world.
And do you think this is oftentimes seen as a crisis? Like, is this what you think?
It was not a crisis yet.
No?
It was just a catharsis. And of course, it's a very enlightening moment. But then I came back to Netherlands, because this was in London. And not forget, it was also the Palestinian cause was connected to the music. I think in hindsight, the Palestinian cause is also very important for me, because it has to do with the soul of the world. At the moment, like, you can see what's happening to Palestinians. And somebody said, a very smart person, that actually the soul of the world is under attack. These Palestinians, they guard the soul of the world. I really believe that. And the traumatized Israelis, they are attacking it. And especially as a German person whose family was against Hitler, this really touches me, because from the German community, we have a big responsibility to help the Israelis relieve their suffering, so they can actually stop harming the Palestinians. But that's in hindsight. But that's an important detail, because it was not a concert for Bhutan; it was for the Gaza, which is today is a very important issue for all the people. It was a concert to buy an ambulance for Gaza. It never arrived, of course. But it was a good initiative. And so then I had to go to the monastery.
And you did?
And I did, but the thing is, when you get the task from the universe to become a classical musician and you cannot even read the notes, it's quite scary when you're 20.
Yeah, because you studied political science.
And I didn't really do music as a kid.
No. So you started from scratch.
I had to start from scratch.
Oh, wow.
And it was a huge task. And in the beginning, I didn't dare tell my parents, because I know they would flip out, because that meant they had to support me much longer than they thought they had to. But I started with violin making, because it was in my family system, it was kind of accepted to do a real trade. It was kind of cool, because my parents both academics. And so it was kind of brave, and in my family system it was still accepted. This is very important also in this talk, because as a child you feel what is accepted in your family system, and you feel what is not accepted. And this is also a border. And this also has to do with, I think, why I came into a psychosis, because the moment I really chose to become a classical musician, the system chucked me out. Everybody drew their hands from me. So you lose a lot of protection. Because your family also means protection, acceptance.
Yes, of course.
But so I first went to the monastery to start to also deal with that part of me that was split, and I started just to meditate, and I started to meditate 6 to 8 hours a day. That after 6 or 8 hours of actual sitting, I could feel that unity again that I had felt through the music.
Yeah.
And so I stayed for I think 3 months in Plum Village. Then I came back and I kept my routine. Like, I don't know, I haven't been that disciplined since then in my life, but I was amazingly disciplined in that time because I knew this is all or nothing.
Yeah.
If I don't make it,
all in.
If I don't make it, the split part will maybe take over my life, hurt my loved ones, and I will become a mafiosi like these guys. So I had real fear also that drove me, and I kept.
So that's again, you need to be brave, like.
Yeah. There was desperation again in the background, and so I got up 5 a.m. meditated for 3 hours, then went to university and had so many classes, and I did that for like 1.5 years. And in the meantime, that girl I spoke about from the hitchhiking trip, she became my girlfriend and actually became my fiancée even. So we were really building something up, and I was really in love with her, and I was actually quite accepted by myself. I had many friends. I was people liked me. I was in the rowing society, blah, blah, blah. But then I went kind of spiritual, which is very funny because my brother told me yesterday, I asked him, how is that guy doing? Yeah, his big brother went spiritual. So I'm also a big brother and I also went spiritual.
Yeah.
And my brothers still laugh about it. But so I started my own sangha in my house. People could come and meditate with me because sitting 6 to 8 hours a day can be quite lonely. And I had my French girlfriend, fiancée, that was going well. And then suddenly I realized, because I had felt these states of pain, and I actually really kind of unconsciously, I was making my way through the source of the split. I think. And I didn't know it and then I started to get into psychosis, and it happens like a frog in boiled water. You don't notice it at the beginning because you don't know it. It's a state you don't know, but suddenly you start doing strange things. You lose your ethics. In my case, at some point, I didn't care about appointments anymore. Yeah, I even cheated on my fiancée, which was nothing I really wanted, but. It was like I was losing control.
And how old were you now in this?
23.
Okay, so we're at 23.
And
you said like a frog in boiled water, so.
Yeah, I was just meditating, but slowly I was losing. I think Patrick Bateman says that in American Psycho pretty well. I was losing the mask of sanity. I was losing the ground. And basically what. For example, in the poem The Dark Night of the Soul, your soul goes out. So you have meditated long enough, you have held the pain long enough with the consciousness, and the journey begins. Like in the second symphony of Gustav Mahler, the hero is seen at his own burial. That's how he describes one of the movements. So basically, you start doing stupid shit that you regret, and then you get into states of pain, I think, that are similar to the pain that your ancestor experienced. So my great-grandmother, she got in a psychosis and she never got out. And she spoke out against Hitler, and she was kicked out of her community. She was, of course, blackmailed.
Yeah, that's the German side of the family.
Yeah, German side of the family. And later in the psychosis, I found out that it was her psychosis.
So your psychosis was actually your great-grandmother's psychosis that you are maybe finishing what she didn't finish.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. And that's why it was also connected to the Palestinian cause, because what the Germans did to the Jewish people is still going on. And my great-grandmother, she spoke out against the Nazis and said, I'm not going to... She even tried to support Jewish people in subtle ways. And yeah, so in this moment, the journey really started. And like at the moment, I didn't have so much consciousness of it. But in retrospective, my soul was going out of my body. Mm-hmm. And that means your geweten, your rules, your feeling of ethics. Mm-hmm. You lose your feeling of ethics.
Yeah.
Because that's connected to your soul. So if your soul goes out to perform the dark night of the soul, which is actually a very good word for psychosis, or the storm of the soul, which is also...
in Dutch it sounds really beautiful, zielenstorm.
Yeah. Right? So this was actually, I had initiated it through hard work, not through drug abuse, but through sitting all the hours that it took. And now the journey was starting, and the first thing that happens is you lose your ethics. You do stupid shit that you regret so hard. And losing that relationship, for me, like I had already imagined with her life together, I asked her to marry me. And it was so sad. It was just wrapped the whole time. And I think at some point I was a little suicidal, but I'm kind of a tough cookie, so I went good to it. But I think I reflected on it. Why did I have to experience this? And I think... because my great-grandmother probably had same levels of sadness. And to really get into her psychosis, I had to create conditions that were similar. I think this is how this...
You had to go very deep to reach that.
Yeah.
To reach her sadness.
Yes, and, exactly, her tragedy.
Her tragedy. And what is the role of your mother? Because she was your mother's grandmother.
Yes.
And there is your mother and your grandmother.
It's kind of skipped 2 generations. But it was very interesting because my mother completely changed during the psychosis. In the beginning, she was very mad because she felt that I was digging into something that concerned us all. Because of course I was digging deep in the family system. Also because I felt like, why is being a musician not okay? So with me, like my psychosis was connected to my vision also. I don't know if that's always the case, but I want to become a musician, and I felt, why do I have to be kicked out from my family to become a musician? This is not normal.
Why can I not just be accepted?
Yes, as a musician. And there was an old, like dark, broken twig in the family tree, and that was my great-grandmother. And she needed to be healed. She needed to be healed so I could live my dream. But she needed to be looked at first.
But she was buried, like in this, her whole story was buried.
But in the spirit world, people don't die.
No.
So her tragic fate was still encoded, genetically also. So basically my mom, as she's a very empathetic, beautiful person, she grew with me. She visited me. But yeah...
What do you mean she visited you? Where were you now?
So basically, first I had to go to the separation, which is really terrible. Luckily, I found the Second Symphony of Mahler in that time, which gave me a lot of comfort.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes.
What is the comfort, or like I would call this an original medicine?
The Second Symphony of Mahler is called the Symphony of Resurrection. So it's about resurrection. And as a part of me was dying pretty badly, I really needed a resurrection. And the 4th movement of the symphony is called Urlicht.
Urlicht.
Der Mensch liegt in größter Pein, der Mensch liegt in größer Not. Je lieber möchte ich im Himmel sein. So it's basically, man is lying in deep agony, in deep despair. He'd rather be in heaven. And then he goes to heaven, knocks on the door, but the angel says, sorry, God is not available. So it's kind of this Viennese Jewish humor that he also had, because he was a Jewish person in Vienna. And he said, sorry, didn't have an appointment, God's not available, so no suicide for you. You cannot give your task back to God. And then in the end and it's a beautiful song, actually, that I studied myself, now as a singer. It's really like so beautiful. And then in the end is it, da kam ein breiten Weg. And in the end, God gives a little light. Wird dir ein Lichtchen geben, wird leuchten dir, bis in das ewig selig Leben. And that's basically, so God's unavailable. Angel says, sorry, I have an appointment. But God gives little light. And this little light is basically the birth of a new consciousness, because this is the fourth movement of the symphony. And the fifth movement, that's where the resurrection happens.
Mm.
So I heard this music, and because of this whole initiation thing and this part of me that wanted to become one, I always call this part the Icarus, the fallen angel, wanted to become an angel again.
Mm-hmm.
I can only do it through music. So he understands that part of me that sometimes scared the shit out of people. He really understands music really good. Mm-hmm. Like my humble brain takes time, but he understands it completely. Mm-hmm. The other part of me, he's like, and he communicates with me, of course, and gives me insight that I take time to understand. But I'm carrying this thing which is really brilliant about music, because I think it's a way for him to go back into the light. Let's call it like that.
Wow.
Like the Icarus that has fallen by flying too close to the sun. Anyway, so he gave me a lot of insight that this music is important for us, for me. Mm. And so many people in the psychosis or in such a big tragedy, they go through a moment where they're desperately lonely, they don't know what to do with themselves, and then a little light comes and shows them the way. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what Mahler encoded sonically for us to rediscover. And then in the fifth movement, it's all about resurrection.
Yeah, so there's a return.
It's a return.
There's always the return.
The hero's story, Joseph Campbell. Hero's journey.
Yeah, the hero's journey. Yeah.
But for me, it was so important to listen to the music and know I'm in this journey. I'm not by myself. So in German, we call this Enteinsamung. Mm. You're not lonely. Mm-hmm. Others have went through it, so it gives you a lot of boost. Of course, because at that moment I was seen as psychotic. People were afraid of me. I was afraid people would put me in a psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
Thank God they didn't. Thank God I also escaped. So because I felt like I was still having arguments with my dad at the time. I was living with them in Groningen, and I felt like at some point I really have to go, otherwise they will put me.
Yeah. Like, but there was also, you spoke about your GP, your doctor.
Yeah,
that he
exactly.
He had also a role in this, and I think it's very beautiful to speak about this a little bit.
My general practitioner, Paul Giesen, who has known me since I was a little boy, because I was, I went to the school with his son also, Gijs, who is a GP also, but there's a family of GPs. And he actually, I saw him this morning, because he has become a friend for life. Yeah, he really protected me in that very fragile phase. Like he saw me and he said, Simon, you're not in this because of drugs or anything. You can handle it. So he gave me confidence, and he said to my parents, chill the fuck out, let him be. And he said, he gave me some pills to test. He said, if you want antipsychotic, I give you the most light one, just to test out for yourself. I did test and didn't like it.
Why you didn't like it?
Because it blocked everything. It was the beginning of the end. And there was actually a very funny, I was next to the Goffert in Nijmegen. I was walking around there. Because of course it's difficult. You're like a little bit lost in this moment. But you're very intuitive. And then a homeless guy started talking to me. Told him about my situation. He was like, dude, don't take it. A homeless guy. And
he gave you advice on medication.
He gave me such good advice. He's like, don't do it. It's the beginning of the end. And he gave me courage to say no. And of course...
And your doctor was supporting that choice, because he supported you in general.
He protected my individuality.
Which is, wow.
Which is really...
It's golden.
It's really golden, because he knew me as a child. He really saw who I was. Even if I was going through this dark night of the soul thing. And by seeing me like that, he kind of was a very important piece of the puzzle. Mm. And we're friends till this day. And he wrote a beautiful book about his practice. Mm-hmm. I advise everybody to read it.
Yeah, your doctors.
Dokteren op het grensvlak.
Okay, good. Dokteren op het grensvlak. That's like playing doctor on the edge in English.
And it tells beautiful stories about where all the time he listened to his heart. And he had to make difficult decisions as a doctor, but he is like that.
But that's brilliant. And here also you see, I can link this a little bit to what your grandfather already was saying. Like you need like a guidance, but also individual, somebody who really knows you. So this is also why relationships and strong, lasting relationships are so important, because he could also make certain decisions because he knew you for so many years. And because I can understand why it is. For doctors, it can be a little bit scary. Imagine there's this guy in front of you, 23 years old, who's kind of in a dark night of the soul. Oftentimes, doctors are also just afraid. They don't know what to do.
And you feel
they try to control this situation.
And if you're in that space, which is a very sensitive space, because you lose your filters as a psychotic person, you're like a little child, sensitive as a little child, and you're looking for security, but you notice that, like you say in your book, the old world and your old self is not going to protect you anymore. And this is where it goes wrong, because people stay with their families. They don't go on a journey, on a hero's journey like I did. And they stay at home, and at some point the family cannot hold it anymore, and they put them in the psychiatric ward or in a hospital. But this is the moment where you're most fragile. You have to be brave and set the first step. And of course, I had my dream of becoming a conductor. By that time, the only thing I had left, because I had lost my fiancée, I was pretty down. And I was desperate again. And that dream saved my ass. Because I went to Berlin, I went to the Berlin Phil, I went to my aunt, she said, you can stay here for 2 weeks, not longer. Because she, of course, was like, I'll save your individuality even if my sister is not liking it. For 2 weeks. So find something.
Hurry up.
And hurry up.
Find it quickly.
Because my sister is yelling in the background. I can only hold you for 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
And and that really saved my ass. And then I went to the Berlin Phil. Wow. Wow.
What's that? Explain.
That's the Philharmonic Orchestra of Berlin. Berlin was the city where my great-grandmother lived and where she also was traumatized. And my dream was becoming a conductor, and because I could feel the unity in that. And then I went to the rehearsal of the Berlin Phil, which is a very famous orchestra. And I was also telling people I want to become a conductor, and they were like, yeah, you're crazy, good luck. And you also feel that. You feel not only the doctors that do not know you and are just afraid, you can feel the fear. It's like a cloud. And you can feel very good when you're seen actually by someone. And I, of course, was seen also by the music. So I went to this rehearsal, and for some magical reason they let me in.
So you were not part of the group, but but you just opened.
It's a very famous orchestra.
Yeah.
And I went to the rehearsal.
You sneaked in the back door.
I told them I'm a conductor already.
Oh, you told them.
Which was not true.
Oh, okay.
But this was my vision, of course.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, he's a conductor. And you know, the Germans, they are like, okay, we don't want to make a mistake. Yeah. If he's a real conductor and we don't let him in, we are in trouble. Okay, go in.
Oh my God.
And then I hung my jacket on the jacket holder of the concierge, and I went in, and I sat on the first one, and we were just rehearsing with some famous conductor, Gustavo Dudamel, his name is. And after like 5 minutes, somebody came and said, who are you? Can you please go out? And then actually a member of the orchestra said, no, please let him stay. He can go to the second circle.
Oh.
And that woman, she doesn't know who I am, but she kind of saved my life.
Wow. It's so beautiful, because also from my perspective, you know, I've been working in psychiatry for so long, and I've seen sometimes people living their own dreams or visions or something. Yeah. But oftentimes it ends up in a lot of aggression or like being picked up by the police and kicked out, or anger, or you know, all that stuff.
And so I went to the second row, and they started to play Beethoven's Fourth Symphony, and again, like, I could have my catharsis.
Yeah, and you felt your oneness again.
I could have my catharsis on demand. I just needed to get into And it was such a big moment, I remember, and I could see colors, the sounds were, I had no filters. The thing that makes you incredibly fragile and weak if you're in the dark night of the soul, because your soul is not in your body. So you're weak, you're fragile, you just one remark and you're out for a week. You lose control all the time. And this music, it really gave me a short moment where I felt the unity again. I could weep, I could cry, I could process. Because you need a way to process. And I could process through music. And I will never forget those. That were like the biggest lessons of my life. And that was also, that moment in the Berlin film was also a moment I realized, I think I'm really a conductor. I really have to do this. And I have this funny laugh started at that moment.
Oh, really?
Because I felt like the universe kind of reacted, like, yeah, we have this guy, he actually listens to us, and he actually found his purpose. So we're laughing through him now.
Through him. So it's a universal laugh that I hear, because I just heard it earlier.
And it's really, it's powerful.
It's loud.
I've been on music project, I started laughing, and suddenly 300 people were laughing. Because it's really like, it's a powerful tool. If it wants, I don't control it.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah. If God wants, I laugh so loud.
Yeah.
And people, they almost pee in their pants. It's really funny. And that all started in that moment, because I think if you accept your mission, it does something with you. It gives you, and actually, I have to say something more about this moment, because there's this beautiful poem by Eichendorff, which is called The Moon Night, the Mondnacht. And it talks about the soul coming home in the spirit. It's a beautiful song, set to music by Robert Schumann. Es war, als hätte der Himmel die Erde still geküsst, dass sie im Blütenschimmer von ihm nur träumen musst. It's very hard to remember now. Der Mond schien auf die Felder, die Ähren ruckten sacht. So sternklar war die Nacht. Und meine Seele spreite ihre Flügel aus und flöge sie nach Haus. So it's basically the moment where Eichendorff describes the moment where your soul comes home in the spirit. So it's this feeling of immortality, which is a very important part of resurrection. And as I was in the dark night of the soul, in that rehearsal, I felt a part of my soul, which is out of my body, of course, came home in my spirit. And this gives you a confidence in yourself and in your life that nobody can take away, because you lose a part of your fear of death.
Yeah, that's big.
That's a real big moment. You will never forget it.
No.
So for me, it was with Dudamel, Beethoven 4th Symphony, which starts very mysterious, like, and then they started rehearsing, and I felt this was happening.
And this was still with that orchestra. You were sitting there.
Yes, it was all happening, and
wow.
It was happening in that moment.
Yeah.
And later, I only realized what it was, and it changed me forever. And had this funny laugh since then, which my parents were like when they heard it for the first time.
What is going on?
Like, what's wrong with our son? He has this disturbing laugh. And my mother can be like a really strict German, like, this strange son.
A strange son, and you take so much attention with your thing.
I take so much attention. It's really...
Act normal.
It's so abnormal, and you should just be like 50 bathtubs of shame.
Yes, 50 bathtubs. That's a great title for a book. 50 bathtubs of shame.
So, but I was still, at that moment, I wasn't talking to my family, because what they didn't know is that this Icarus side of me, that
fallen angel,
that had to kind of... It was like a process of letting the pain go, and it was like a very fragile process that needed to happen in isolation. So as soon as they called me, and they remembered me of the Simon that actually has brothers, friends, has a life in Holland, which is kind of beautiful and rich, it disturbed the process. I had to put myself in a kind of fridge of loneliness to let this kind of old pain pass. And no, I couldn't explain it to people. So I just said, please don't call me, which is weird. It's like the opposite of incarnation. You had to excarnate a part of you which is really hurt, and that if you don't heal it in time, it can split your personality. So it was like I always describe it like a fishing bone, a dark fishing bone that you have to kind of pull out like on a string like that. And it takes a lot of time. And that was an extremely lonely and hard process that just people that haven't gone through it can, I think, never understand.
And I do think a lot of people actually went through it, but or there was no support, or it was stopped, the process. They went back to, or maybe the old self, or maybe using drugs and alcohol to numb themselves, because it's difficult, it's risky, it's dark, and not knowing how to deal with this.
And I had my training from Plum Village that I could always go back to I call it the silence of the storm. The eye of the storm.
But this is so beautiful. But this is very important medicine, I think, that you have there.
Yeah, I also called before when I had my own sangha at home, it was called the eye of the storm because it was in the red light district in Amsterdam, and it was a very hedonistic place with prostitution, meat, and so on. But I meditated there. And I meditated.
You were living there in the time.
Yeah, and I meditated so much that even my neighbor said, "Simon, we started sleeping here because it has become so calm."
Wow. Yeah. So they're impacting the red light district of Amsterdam a little bit.
Yes.
With the meditations.
Yes. Because I had the monastery old Vietnamese technique of meditation taught by the master himself, and that really made the difference in these very difficult moments. And I'm just going to tell you, so I was, at some point I could go in the house of my deceased grandparents that I loved so much, and I had the space to get out of the psychosis, which is also a really important part, because I think most people are in small rooms, isolated. And the thing is, you feel too much. Your filters have gone. All the filters that you took 15 years of learning from your parents, they're gone. So that's why you see also a lot of homeless people in psychosis, because they have lost the house in themselves. Because the filters they make, you could create a house in yourself. And I could be in this old villa, empty villa, and I could actually breathe for a moment and not be taken out of my balance through other people's feelings.
You had some space.
Finally some space. There I could actually, so I started also singing, taking classical lessons. And it was actually a piano that I took from this German village of Leipzig, which is East Germany. You must imagine that before the existence of screens, people would come in the village house, they would play piano, and there came the new music out of Vienna, and somebody would play it, and everybody would be like, wow, there was no Spotify, it was all. And I went to this village, and I actually, for a little money, I got this piano that was just standing in the corner, nobody used it, and I felt like I was robbing the soul of the village. I still have this piano today. And then there was a day, I was still in the psychosis, and I could sometimes also see other things, which Rudolf Steiner calls, beings that are from another dimension that you see above the senses. So you kind of develop unknowingly a sixth sense to see these beings. And I was in that time scared by people because I felt too much. And then I saw some kids play football across the house, and I was like, oh, those are kids, those are fine, they're playing football, I can have some little social access there, I'll go there, play with them. So I played with these kids football, and then the game stopped, and then one of the kids started beating another kid. So I took them out, said stop, and I looked the kid in the eye, and I saw there was another being in the kid, another entity. Just like I had another entity, but his one was different, it was more violent.
Like his split?
Yeah, his split was already more aggressive and more detached than mine. And I saw it, and it saw that it was seen. So the kids started shouting at me, and then the parents came running, like, always this kid, and he had like a nanny bodyguard. The parents had been moving already 10 times the houses, because the kid was always making trouble. And that was such a deep wow, it really hit me like a stone. So I realized, wow.
It was like a mirror for you.
There's a complete mirror, and I could see there's actually a thing which the Arabic people call the jinn, or an entity that can live in the human and make sure that he does stupid shit, or he's actually, children are in pain if they have such an entity that lives with them. They hit other children to express the pain. And I could see that, because some people told me, Simon, you're delusional. I had to prove that I was not delusional, because the parents had moved 10 times. The kid was violent. And I could see why. I could see that the others couldn't see why. I could see why. And then, of course, I was completely hurt by the situation, because it hurts a lot if you see something like that. And then I had this piano, and I made my first composition. Then suddenly the filters came back. I could feel them closing, and a big part of my journey, the most scary one, was finished.
So that was the return, the ending point. The circle was closing.
Well, then I still had to travel the world to find a music teacher. But the most fragile part of actually surviving the splitness was over by seeing this little kid who was split. Very funny. We'll never forget his name. Isaiah was his name. So my first composition was about Isaiah. I don't know who he was in the Bible or something, but I should look it up. Anyway, I wrote a composition, and then for me, there was this unity again. I could slowly start communicating with other people again. The dangerous part of my journey was over, but I had a new child, which was my musical talent. Because suddenly I could sing Schubert. So basically, because I healed that's the thing that my Zen teacher also told us. When you meditate for very long, you will deepen your personality, and you will access the stories of your ancestors. And the tragic part, he would call it the mud, but also the lotus. It comes from the mud. So basically, you get talents that were kind of
this developing through the mud.
Yeah, and talents that were hidden.
Yeah.
So suddenly I could sing. Yeah. Suddenly I had this new sensitivity of art that I have never had. Because sometimes people ask me, Simon, why did you start so late with music? Well, I had first to transform a lot of mud before I could even access it. And then suddenly I had this vision that it's like a child, you have to take care of it. And I needed a teacher, again, my grandfather, that could guide this process.
And back to this kid, Isaiah, you say? Well, you're also you've been educated Rudolf Steiner school teacher.
Yes.
So the kid also is growing, and maybe a couple of years older now, it becomes a young adult, etc. So what do you think is what these kids or the youth or humans in general need, who are like suffering with these jinns or these entities? Like, is there something that you can say from your own experience, from what you've learned from Steiner, from what you've learned working with kids?
Well, the funny thing, one really important part of me coming out of the psychosis was also, because then kind of a big veil closed at that moment where I met Isaiah, but I was still very fragile, and I didn't understand why I could see these things. And then later, when I was in Vienna, because of course there was a lot of pressure at that moment, Simon, do something with your life, get back to the family. But I needed to, I had been underwater for a year, but I needed to prolong this suffering to find a teacher, to find people to make me a musician. And in that process, I found a book in the library of Vienna about the life of Matthias Claudius. Matthias Claudius was the son of a priest. Like in evangelisch tradition, Lutheran tradition, you can have children as a priest. So my great-grandmother was also, in her line, there was priests. Like her grandfather was a priest, her great-grandfather was a priest. And when I was in my psychosis still, there was this song called Der Tod und das Mädchen. It's a very famous song by Claudius, because he was a writer. He was a poet. And poets were the DJs of the 18th century. Like, everybody wanted to become a poet. It was like the coolest thing you could do. You don't want to become a lawyer, you want to become a poet. And he was actually one of the ones who did it, and he brought the most beautiful poetry, like das Abendlied, but also Der Mond ist aufgegangen, but also Der Tod und das Mädchen. And Franz Schubert took it and made a song out of it. I heard that song and I knew this guy has a part of my answer. Again, like a boss who showed me Plum Village, also this song. So this song Tod und das Mädchen, which he doesn't know for sure, but he made it after the death of his brother. And it's actually a tale about death coming for you, like the maiden, Death and the Maiden it's called. The maiden is scared, it's like, vorüber, ach vorüber, geh wilder Knochenmann. And then death is coming. Don't worry, gib deine Hand, du schön und zart gebildet, bin Freund und komme nicht. I'm not singing it in tune at the moment, but the story is about that, basically saying, give yourself, it's fine, I'm your friend. And I heard that and I knew he's also part of my puzzle. So I read this biography about him, and I read about pastors or priests in the Lutheran tradition of the 18th century, because he came out of a family like that. And I realized they could see these things as well. And they are also in my family line. And to answer your question, these were the first psychologists. If they were nasty, of course, they would hurt the people. But if there was a problem, people would go to the priest in these little villages. And they had an education in spiritual things, and they would help to try to be the psychologists. So actually, when I realized that, my great-grandmother, she just started seeing these things, these beings, because she always complained about that in her psychosis, that she could see things that others couldn't. She even painted her windows with paint so they couldn't come in. And she was afraid of what she saw. And that's where she went completely crazy. And I was also initiated in this kind of viewing that was actually in my ancestral knowledge, because my ancestors are the same Lutheran priest that developed these skills. And I had to also go through the process of not be afraid of it, to embrace it.
Yeah, that is the difference, right? You're not painting your windows,
no.
You're facing it.
I'm facing it, I'm embracing it, but I had to go through the same panic attacks as she had. And she was, of course, starting to see things in Nazi Berlin. So if then you can see these things, it must be quite scary. And when the society, like similar to what the Israeli society is going through nowadays, when the society collectively is losing its ethics, it's a very scary place. Where you cannot trust that your police, your government is doing the right thing. It's a very scary place.
Yeah, and it's even beyond the country borders of Israel, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's like we see this is also the time we're living in.
Yeah.
Like a lot of distrust in the ones that we should be able to trust.
Yeah, and but the checks and balances in Israel, as we speak, just like in Nazi Germany, it's not. We cannot say it's the same, but there's a process of eroding checks and balances. So now you can see, for example, death penalty for Palestinians in Israel. But this is an eroding of democracy, an eroding of values. So you can see it as a kind of psychosis, a collective psychosis, because just as I came into psychosis, I also lost my values. That's the first thing that happens. And it's a very scary place to.
But if you compare it, then it actually needs to go also through a cycle of something. It needs to be it needs to return as well. So could it be that we are kind of collectively in a dark night of the soul?
Yeah, I think so. That's why people, they protest for Palestine. They see this concerns us all. They want, and I have some friends in Israel because of an exposition I did, because I wanted to heal the dramatic story of Vienna, where I'm living at the moment. So, I actually, during my Steiner education, I saw that there was a lot of souls in the house where we studied that were kind of stuck there. Don't ask me exactly how I saw it, I just saw it. It's like a daydream moment. This is the skill that I got from my ancestor. And so I started to research, and in the house where we received our masters of anthroposophic teaching, there had been, I think, 28 Jewish people in occupied Vienna, and they were all murdered by the Nazis. And so what I did, I researched it, I made an exposition, and I invited some of these families to come to Vienna and to heal the story of the ancestors. These were Israelis, Italians. There was an American family, but most of them were actually killed. So there was not so many families alive. And in that way, I wanted to continue the work of my great-grandmother, who was very brave. Herself, there's a story about her that I learned from my great-aunt, that after Kristallnacht, she went to a Jewish shoe shop to buy shoes, even though she had little money, just to show we're not all like that. And she had just very good ethics. And she also, I think she saw, if you kill these people, you're not going to solve the problem. Because you can kill the bodies, but the souls are still there. So it's unsolved. And you also, by killing so many people, you lose your own inner world. You lose your ethics. Anyway, so I invited these people to Vienna, and on World Peace Day 2025, we had a beautiful ceremony where they could actually relive a little bit what their ancestors had been through. Very trusting Israeli and Italian people, and it was most beautiful because actually that's where a little bit, I think, my psychosis became something healing for the world, because first I had to heal the story of my great-grandmother, who also was scarred by these Nazis, and now I could actually do something for Vienna, for the Israeli, for the Jewish community, so that they, so as a half German, to support their process of actually keeping life sacred. Because Palestinian life is sacred, like all life is sacred. And I have Palestinian friends also, and it's just so terrifying what's happening there. And I think we all have to do our part just so that history doesn't repeat itself. And there's these very brave people that go with boats to Gaza. I think it's a part. There's many people trying to do their part non-violently, I think it's really the struggle of our time. Yeah, some part of me knew that back in 2010 when I visited that concert for Gaza. Knew that it was a big struggle over time, and already put me on the catharsis. So,
do you say your psychosis is healed, or that because now you speak about these events, from perspective here and now, so you're looking back to these things, which is a little bit different than being in the situation?
Yes.
Of course. So where are you now in your journey?
I have to tell a little bit more. So after Berlin, after Isaiah, I really had to torture my family a little bit more and go on a world journey to find my teacher, which was very hard, but I will summarize it. In Vienna, I found her. Again, it was like a Dharma door. I heard somebody play and I knew my teacher was behind this person. Just like Bas, just like this song, third big Dharma door. And I really harassed this person, said, who's your teacher? And she didn't want to tell me. And she told me in the end, and that teacher has been guiding me. And she basically taught me the basics of intonation, music, singing, the things I needed to really become a musician. And she was like a parent for me the last 8 years. And this was such a real divine intervention, because if you lose your filters, basically every psychotic person needs a new childhood, but they can't get it. It's past, it's gone. So they stay frail and they stay kind of fragile because they don't get the time anymore to build up the filters. But as I was a student starting from scratch, she really guided me for 8 years.
You could relive your younger parts.
Yeah, I had as a musician I was 5 years old, so she really had to teach me the absolute basics, and I was really lucky to find her, and she had also the patience, my God, to do all that work. Yeah. And so I've been studying with her for 8 years, which at the moment, I think I'm almost finishing this education. And I'm really a professional singer now, or semi-professional singer. I have my intonation. I've really become kind of solid again. I was completely fluid, and now I'm kind of solid again. But
do you miss that fluidity, or is it still?
It's still there, because like what happened at 13, 14, it still happens that my soul says, now we're done and we're moving. So I still feel these very fragile moments when my ego or my separate self, he gets accustomed to a certain place like Vienna, and a part of me is like, okay, my soul is basically going out again. I'm like, no, it's not. It's happening again. I just got used to this situation. So actually, the psychosis, or what you want to call it, has certain stages. The healing stage, maybe, that one that happened with my great-grandmother. And then solidifying in the new self. Because I remember also after that Isaiah moment, I thought, finally I can live for myself. I don't have to bury these old wounds that stop me from living my dream. And so I re-solidified in my dream by becoming a musician. And now I'm I've been abroad for like 13 years. And now soon I'll come back to Holland, and because I still feel like a part of me needs to also reintegrate in my family. This part is still open. So it's been 13 years.
Yeah.
I've become a new person, but the reintegration in my family and this system, which was very tight, then my mother changed very quickly with me, but my father, it was a tougher cookie. But I also, over the years, had a good process with him, and we went on a father-son retreat 1.5 years ago, which was very beautiful. And I feel now, after 13 years, I feel safe in my family home, and I feel like I can return.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So I think if you ask, is the psychosis done? I would call it more like a journey. Like, I don't think I can fall back. Like, people ask me, are you afraid to become psychotic again? I'm like, this question already shows me that you don't know what a psychosis is. Because it's always a unique story. It's always a unique story, and if you have been to a certain stage of the story, of course you cannot go back. Because you went through it.
Of course, yeah. And some parts are finished, some parts are round,
of course, but
parts are open.
And if there's fragility again, like if the tree starts shaking, well, you better listen.
Yeah.
Because there's some wisdom behind it.
Yeah, because let's go to how we met. You saw the wisdom of psychosis. What was the part of your story that was the first, like the greatest wisdom that you think that came through your psychosis?
The greatest wisdom? Well, what I learned, and which is in Rudolf Steiner's legacy, is the process of incarnation. So basically, Steiner says, as a teacher, as a Waldorf teacher, you have to help the child incarnate. So he has a higher self. He actually knows what he wants. And as a teacher, you have to provide that. You have to listen to his higher self, what he wants from you. So you don't put your juice on the child. No, you hold the space so the child can actually become who he wants to become. Which is, I think, if you listen to this interview, also like it has been about incarnation for me the whole way.
Yeah.
It's all about incarnation, and now I've incarnated this new version of me that can actually live the dream. I can see it also in other people, because I had to go through the psychosis. I had to learn to reincarnate myself again. And normally you incarnate as a child, so you're not conscious. If you're lucky, you have loving parents, loving teachers, loving community. Yeah. It happens naturally. You feel good, you feel grounded, you don't know why.
It's safe.
It's safe. You do your job, you become successful. But I lost that safety, and I had to rework every little inch of it. So now what I see, I can actually, when I talk with people, I talked with you just before, I can actually feel how incarnated people are. So I can advise them. So look at that. Maybe there you should look.
So you point out some things where you feel like maybe there is still some incarnation happening here.
You have some incarnation potential in that area. Look at it. And I can hear by the sound of the voice and by the general informations how, if people with their personality have accepted this process or not. Because sometimes many people fight against it.
Or they're not aware.
They're not aware.
Yeah.
And some people, like beautiful people,
And they get upset with you if you point it out.
Or so you have to be very skillful. You shouldn't, if they don't ask, you shouldn't say it.
But it's like the sensitive person, let's just call it like this. Like a lot of kids also we see have this sensitivity like you had as a kid, or the teenagers, and oftentimes they will be labeled as difficult kids, nasty kids, because they are pointing out where are like weak spots in a system, in a family system, in a class system. And if you are a little bit older and wiser, and you say like you
have
some
gray hair, yes.
A little bit gray hair I see from nearby. But you realize also what talent you have to, like the sensitivity that you have to see things clearly. And you also have learned to not just like bomb people with...
I used to do that as a kid.
Yeah, of course. But this is what a lot of kids do. And they get labeled, difficult or, troublemakers. Well, I see that the troublemakers are actually oftentimes in an unsafe environment or a dysfunctional environment. Like it's very rarely you see a very balanced, safe, beautiful environment with a troublemaker in it.
So I think of my father who actually always fought against it. He fought against
you also, like your...
And also against, there was wisdom in that because he needed to also, that dark side part of me, he needed to be a strict parent with that. But I think what I'm looking forward to is now that I kind of took care of my dark side and I integrated it, that now the light side can actually come in and it can give these informations in a much more positive and wholesome way so people can actually integrate it. Because if people cannot integrate it, you're just a jerk.
And then you get stuck or you become a super big jerk and you survive that way, but you're constantly surviving.
It's not quality of life. And it took me a lot of effort to actually reconcile with my father. Because also as a child you need the trust of your parents and you need the feeling, the reflection of them that they think you're a good person. And I never got that from him because I was a kind of a wild horse. So it took me a lot of time to get this acceptance from him, which is very important for me.
Just the way how you are.
Just the way, and I could only get it because I mastered my dark side. Because then I didn't have to react. Because many children, they would say, I hate my dad, he never accepts me. But they forget to take ownership of their own dark side. Because it's never like they describe it. It's the dark side of your parent that somehow he never managed to heal. Triggers your dark side. And you both lose control. So if one of the two actually heals, integrates their darkness, there's no chain reaction anymore. And sometimes it's the task of the father, sometimes of the son, sometimes of the daughter, sometimes of the mother. But if one of the two steps out and actually reconciles, you can finally have peace. You can finally feel safe and there's no more blaming. Because there's so much blaming. And I think if you look at these, mostly parents, they get blamed. And I feel like they have given so much for their children. Of course, they're not perfect. But they don't deserve it to be blamed for anything. They've given their best and there's some raw sides. Okay, then it's up to you as the child to integrate your dark side with all these beautiful conditions that I had as a child. Like financially, I never really had to worry. And then we can have peace. That's my job. I have to take my job seriously. And now we have a nice peace, which is still unfolding, but I'm very proud of it that we kind of made it, and I can see it with my brothers. I can see it has rippling effects for the whole system. Everybody feels at home, feels safe. So it's also for the little brothers. It's hard when they see the old brother always fighting with the dad. It's for them also unsafe. It's for everybody unsafe.
So true.
So
so beautiful. I think there's so much more to unfold, and this is our first conversation. I can totally imagine there will be a follow-up at some point, because I think there's so much to learn, and all these different topics, they have different deeper layers. Like if we think of consciousness and the levels of consciousness and the question of who am I and how do I relate to myself and my inner world, and how do I relate to the external
Higher
world.
self.
The higher self, I think there is...
The higher self is especially when we interact with children, it's so important. Also, Steiner says that we shouldn't prepare the children for our world. They have unique qualities. Also, Khalil Gibran says their souls are in the house of the future. Respect that, please.
Yeah, and this is actually what your grandfather did. Well, we started this conversation with your grandfather. Yeah. He might not have the knowledge of these teachers or authors, but he was sharing this already, this insight and this gift.
He was preparing me for the house of the future.
Yeah, well, that's something very precious, what he was doing there. You know, he was giving you these precious seeds.
Like good flower.
Yeah, he gave you some seeds or some inspirations.
Mostly he gave me unconditional love. He gave me acceptance. He held me in his space, and he gave me the full acceptance. Like grandparents, they can do that sometimes. And he gave me wisdom in that acceptance, so I could hold on to it. Because of course I would hold on to something where somebody loved me unconditionally. Of course, I would never forget it.
Yeah, of course. And this is a great original medicine as well, like unconditional love. It's another topic we could definitely speak an whole hour on this. I did actually in one of my other podcasts also. Yeah. Speaking about how unconditional love, this was like linked to care professionals and care, and how important it is to love another person unconditionally.
Yeah, and I also want to, if we are ending, I want to make a short, like my mother, also the daughter of my grandfather. Like I remember when I was 18, she made this book for me. I still cherish it a lot, where she put in like pictures of when I was a baby, and she basically showed through the pictures she reminded me with this book how much she loved me and how beautiful that safe time was when I was a small child, which you forget, of course. And then she wrote a sentence in that book, which is kind of, I think, also the philosophy she received with her parents. It's like, we have plenty and we'd like to give it to you as our child. Pass it on. Do something with your life, pass it on. The happiness is in passing on the beauty that you receive. So that's actually a wisdom I got from my mom. And when she turned 60, I think, I wrote a song about this, and it was a big stage and a lot of friends, and I sang that song for her.
Oh, so beautiful. And it's touching you very deeply, I can see that. Yeah,
it's like sometimes if you have been to so much fragility, like going through psychosis, it's so scary. And then I still have these like artifacts like that book, where there's like a safe part of me that is kind of, it's there and I can access it. Anytime I open a book, it's there for me to access the time where I experienced the deepest safety in this life. So that was a huge gift.
Wow.
So that's the kind of love I received, which is kind of ridiculous, I think.
Well, I think it's a huge gift to give, but I think you also have a huge capacity to receive, which is another gift. Because if you're not able to receive it for what it is, then it doesn't make any sense, but it touches you deeply. You see the value of this gift because you have the capacity to receive that amount of love. It's huge and it's big.
Yeah, and I also see the way she lives her life, her example, the example of my grandparents, the example of my teachers. I can see how much love they give, actually. And I think we all need people that we can be inspired by. And if your mom is such a person, it helps.
Yeah.
It helps because all the people I know that they just think my mom is amazing. I've never met someone who's like, "Oh, your mom is stupid." No. Like everybody is in awe of her. So my grandparents have done something really good. There's a nice tradition, and I'm a part of it. So to also accept that tradition that you're part of, and like the way my grandparents treated other people, I want to continue that, and I want to continue those ethics. And yes,
strong, yeah, very strong. And also how you speak about ethics. And of course, nobody's perfect. There is imperfection there, but you are able to pierce through that imperfection and to see the light, and you illuminate the space with this. Well, I'm very grateful to have this conversation with you.
Yes.
I'm very grateful that you actually stepped into my life by sending me a message.
But yeah, your work is amazing, Anneke. I have to say it for the whole podcast. Coming from a space like the Psychosis, which some people call the hell realm, and actually seeing somebody who's working in this field and actually is looking at the positive, is really like a fresh breath of air. Like if you're going to these states, you need someone who's looking at the positive, and there's not enough of that. Most people are afraid of you, and you don't need fear. You have enough of that. You need confidence, you need warmth, you need space. So if you're initiating that with your book, with your work, I say thank you in the name of all the people who have to go through this.
Thank you.
I hope we built something nice with also the book that I wrote in that time, so people can be less afraid of this state, and in the future people don't have to go through so deeply.
You point exactly out my reason for doing this work, actually to go into the depths and to not be that afraid, and come back with some wisdoms and pearls that you found there in the darkness. But
yes.
Also being in the darkness, also as care professionals, oftentimes we're staying away from the darkness, and from above we're looking down into the dark where there's a person. We're like, hello, are you okay? Here, I'm throwing down a sandwich, and I'll wait here until you're out of the dark. But it's important, I think, for also care professionals to be able to go into the dark, and then you meet some, and not only that the other person, like really, but also you meet the darkness within yourself. So it's not only scary to do it for yourself, to go down, deep down with another person, but it's also healing, because you find a level of intimacy, and this is the only place where you find this level of intimacy, and this is the only place where you find true healing. And not like, it's not, I don't mean I go down to heal you, but I'm actually going down to heal myself, and together we heal.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image that we like in, I think, some South American cultures, and the person who has a psychiatric illness, he is seen as also a healer. He is seen as someone that actually can initiate a wave of healing, and he's not outcasted, and he's not drugged. Yeah. Which maybe sometimes, if it's really violent, it's the last resort. But it's really sad. I've met people who also, because in this movie I was in by Luuk Bouwman, I've met people who were broken in the hero's journey. Basically, they were broken. They were not being able to finish it. Yeah, and that's just really sad. It makes you silently sad.
That is very, very sad. That's like dying while you're still alive.
Also, it's dying while you're still alive, and because the light that actually wants to come, like the little light, if it cannot incarnate, because you don't go through the healing completely, you don't, and then it's like the biggest gift of your life cannot come. And I can only imagine how sad that is. Look at my story. I mean, my great-grandmother couldn't heal it, and now I healed it.
So there's a lot of, that's also a term we were speaking about before we started recording, a lot of surrendering also. It's not about pushing into healing or anything like this, but if you feel like there's healing happening here, surrender to it. If there's no healing happening, maybe it's not the right time. Also, this whole episode of the podcast is your story, and somebody else has their own.
That's the whole idea of it, that you develop your individuality. Please, don't become some copy of someone else. It's the whole process of life, as Steiner also very smartly, but also Mahler. You resurrect in your individuality. There is no prefab life. There's only individuality, your own ethics, your own feelings, your own thoughts that want to be born. Everything else coming from radio parents, it's not worth living. It's individual, always. That's where the quality is. If it's not individual, it's not real. This is very important because in the spirit world, that's also what Steiner says. To become an individuality, it first starts in the body. The child needs to go through it. Then it starts in the soul. That's finding your purpose, maybe. And then it comes in the spirit. And it goes in these steps. And I think he was really right with that.
Yeah, so if you skip that individual part, that embodiment, then you will never complete that cycle, let's say.
It starts with accepting reality, accepting that the wood is hard. Steiner calls it the ripeness of earth, Erdenreife. Accepting the rules as they are. That's what he called individuality of the body. Individuality of the soul is accepting the parents, accepting the family we were born in, accepting the gift maybe that we want to develop in this life. You can talk about gender and all these things. Accepting your gender maybe is also part of it. And then individuality of the spirit, well, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't know so much to say about it, but I think it has to do with really, it's the last step of incarnation. It's really taking down your own individual light, taking it down to earth, and becoming the one who you truly are. And coming into this deep being state. And it's like a chain.
Maybe I'm just thinking out loud now, but maybe this level of spirit, maybe you realize that you are actually part of the whole, so your wholeness.
I think you can say it's the flow state. Maybe.
Exactly, maybe the flow.
Where my grandfather talked about, it's accepting your
you're part of
your part of unity.
Yes, exactly. It's very interesting, eh? I like it. This is dualism and non-dualism, of course. Like you're an individual and you're part of the whole. Yeah,
But the individuality of the spirit maybe is your surpassing duality, and you're really like just happy in the present with where you are. There's no but, you just are.
Exactly.
And this is a state that many spiritual teachers talk about.
Full acceptance and surrendering again.
Yes, but there's so many levels before that. It starts with your family, with your teachers. You have to accept your family system, all the tasks that come with it, all the pressures, all the traumas. And then, maybe at some point you really have peace. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, that's good. That's good. If we're not knowing, then there's a lot of space for the unknown and to be discovered, right? So let's continue our journey. I'm very happy that also we can share our starting point of, this unknown journey that we are stepping in here.
Yes.
I just created and published a book. You're in the process of creating and publishing a book, so
hopefully you publish it. I want you as my publisher.
Let's work on that. That's beautiful for the people who are listening, maybe as well, to be part of the first step of this journey here. Like this is the first day that we meet in person, and let's see how this continues and let's see how we can change this hero story.
Let's see how we can change how people are treated in psychosis.
Yes. Yeah. I made this banner for going to conferences and also some flyers, and I write on there, the story of psychosis is changing. And I
Yes,
think
yes.
this is the momentum where we are here. The story of psychosis is changing, and I feel this is a big overlap in our, personal mission. So again, thank you for being here, and let's continue. Thank you everybody who was listening to this podcast. I will share some information about how to connect with Simon or how to find my book. The Wisdom of Psychosis just got published 3 weeks ago. This is about navigating the intelligence of altered states, and it's in English. So I encourage you to check it out on my website, annekesips.com, and then you find information about the book, or you can buy it everywhere where books are sold. Let's connect, and also let me know, let us know in maybe comments or somewhere. Maybe share this work in your networks. I'm very curious to hear back from other people how they respond to this work and to the pathways that we are paving here. So thanks again for listening, and till another time.